Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. We're going to be talking about a very important topic about gun violence, the root cause and the real solution, and why we need to go beyond left and right. But today, I'm going to essentially give you a preview about a summit that we're going to be hosting that will be coming up this Saturday, June 4th, 2022 at 11 a.m. And this summit, most of you who are listening out there are likely our warrior scholars. So I want to let everyone know this Saturday, June 4th, 2022, as the sign says, we'll be hosting a summit on gun violence, the root cause, and the real solution beyond left and right. And the reason today, first of all, I want to begin by obviously expressing my deep condolences to the family and those people who suffered the violence in Uvalde, Texas. It was obviously a horrific event. And since that time, I've been observing how those who have incredible access to power, profit, and control, politicians, have been dealing with this. And if you notice, what's unfortunate is it is the same recurrent set of events that always occurs when something like this occurs. It becomes a left-right issue. You have people robotically spitting out the pro-gun stuff or spitting out the anti-gun stuff. And that's the level of discourse that those in power, the media, have reduced everything to, because they really don't want to really discuss the root cause of the real solution, which is really beyond left and right. And either they're incompetent or they don't care. And I believe the latter, unfortunately, is true, because I don't believe they really have the intention to really get to the root cause or the real solution. Many of you know I've repeatedly shared with all of you the need for us to go beyond left and right, be it this problem or any other problem. So our Truth, Freedom, and Health movement, many of you know, is a bottoms-up movement. We spend a lot of time really educating people on how to think and look at a problem beyond left or right, because the world is a world of complex systems. The world is not that simple. And if you try to take any problem and you try to reduce it to a left or right, it's a wonderful way of taking sections of working people and having them fight against each other, or another set of people essentially become hopeless, that there is no solution, and another set of people essentially, take outrageous actions because they feel desperate. And we're going to discuss that. But what I wanted to let everyone know, those of you, many of you out there, we have hundreds of thousands of people who have at various levels gone through the Truth, Freedom, and Health program. But on Saturday, June 4th, which is this coming Saturday at 11 a.m., we're going to be holding our summit. Obviously, those of you, if you go to vashiva.com/join, those of you who are warriors, you'll be getting an email to how to access. Obviously, since this is such a sensitive issue and such a volatile issue, we want to have an environment that we can discuss this in a much more sensitive way. So we're going to be hosting it this Saturday. So those of you who are Truth, Freedom, Health warriors, keep an eye out for our email. Those of you who are not and want to become one, you can just go to vashiva.com/join. But what I wanted to do today, as the title says, this is a preview to the upcoming system science presentation. And since the events that took place 2 years ago, I did a analysis of this, taking a multi-systems analysis, and we talked about the 5 key factors that came out of research that was done that are behind gun violence. And since that time, I've continued with our team to do more and more research. So the research we want to share is something you can't unpack, in most of the social media context because of the sensitivity of this. So we want to share that in a much more of a formal scientific presentation, which we'll be doing Saturday. I did want to give people, before I started, a preview into that. What are we going to be covering in that summit that we're going to be doing for our Truth, Freedom, and Health warriors? And what I wanted to share with you is that there are a set of things that we'll be covering, and these are the topics that we'll be covering. There's a whole bunch of things, so it's going to be probably a 3-hour presentation. We're going to be covering a number of items. But before I go into that, I wanted to put this in context, and I wanted to play a video that I normally do, which gives you really the reason behind our educational movement to lift people up and to really give people the right context. I just want to play this video and I'll be right back. And we're going to cover shortly all the different topics that are going to be covered in our summit, Truth, Freedom, and Health Summit, coming this Saturday. We have allowed our country to be taken over from within, and the end goal is you will have a homogenized world where we will become slaves, because there is a condition among the elites that really thinks they're better than you, deep down inside them, that you don't deserve the freedoms you have. They don't. This reality is what people need to wake up to, and we need to all unite working people. There's only one movement that can do that, and that is the movement that we started creating here in Massachusetts, the movement for truth, freedom, and health. Look, I've been a student of politics since I was a 4-year-old kid, studying revolutionary movements, left wing, right wing. There's a physics, there's a nuclear science to destroying the establishment. To build a bridge, you need to understand Newton's equation. You need to understand the laws of gravity. You need to understand Poisson's ratio. There is a way to build a revolution, and that's why I put this together. My goal is to train an army of truth, freedom, and health leaders. We don't need followers like social media. We need leaders, but they need training, because the educational system does not teach them history, nothing. So in 3 hours, that's what I've started doing. That's the solution. We got to train people. First, with understanding what a system is. The second is understanding the interconnection between truth, freedom, and health. Freedom is the ability to move freely, communicate freely, right? Talk freely. Without freedom, you cannot convert ideas, hypothesis into truth, which is science. And without freedom, you can't really get to truth. And without truth, you make up fake problems and fake solutions, which means you destroy our health. And without health, which is the infrastructure of us and our body, you can't fight for freedom. Third concept is it has to be bottoms up. Working people, people who work uniting. And what the right wing has done is whenever you say working people unite, that must be communist. Meanwhile, they've let the Democrats run unions, which suppress workers. Completely corrupt. But when you look at the arc of American history, it's been when working people came up. We need to go local. Every solution I'm coming up with as a part of this movement, we're giving the science, which is the truth, and then we tell people what they can do on the ground. Like with election fraud, you don't need to wait for some lawyer. Our goal is to train people, Dave, to go local, to go local, to go local, fight locally. Forget lawyers, forget politicians, forget celebrities. You got to learn politics, and there is a science to it. They lock us down, we should be ready to shut them down. And the fourth part of this principle is a not so obvious establishment. So when you look at a system, there's always something that disturbs you from getting to your goal. Well, the biggest disturbance is a not so obvious establishment, which are those people who claim they're for you, on the left and the right. The Al Sharptons who tell black people I'm for you. The Tucker Carlsons. Do you think any true anti-establishment person will ever be on Fox or CNN? I don't think so. They both mislead working people back into the establishment. Without this solid understanding of political physics and theory, you're screwed. You're going to follow on the left wing, Bernie Sanders. Oh, he said something. Or Robert Kennedy. Scumbags. Or you're going to follow, some right-wing talk show host. They're not going to lead us to liberation. It's us. And that political physics, it's a nuclear science of change. Bottoms up. We have to organize to understand that there is people who talk a good game and then look at what they actually do, left and right. I'm sorry, Sean Hannity may say some good things, but I don't see the urgency in his voice to get something done, and it can only come when you weaponize yourself with the right knowledge. You need to be able to identify a rat. Christ didn't go after the Romans, right? It was the Pharisees and the Sadducees who screwed him up. His own quote-unquote people. And that's where we're at. So these four concepts I've built into a curriculum. People can go to vashiva.com. And it's an educational program. We need to train people in political theory. You need to have physics. And I've created that curriculum. People need to get educated. We need to get educated fast. And within a half an hour, I can teach people. 2 years of MIT control systems, I teach people those concepts. Then I apply it, anyone can understand it. And then you say, oh, I got to build a bottoms-up movement. They have to get politically astute, and then they have to go locally and act, not sit there on social media. They have to act locally, defy locally, do civil obedience locally, but with knowledge on how to build a movement. The Senate campaign's expanded to the Movement for Truth, Freedom, and Health, and they can find it on V as in Victor, A, Shiva, vashiva.com, so people can sign in. They can get access to a bunch of videos. If they want to take a course and become a Truth, Freedom, and Health leader, I offer a full scholarship there. But we want people to make a commitment that they'll study, that they'll get certified, that they'll go do activities on the ground. So go to VA Shiva, Victory America Shiva, vashiva.com. All right, everyone. So welcome. That was our beginning video, but the purpose of today's conversation or discussion is to really give everyone a preview to the upcoming System Science presentation that is planned at our Truth, Freedom, and Health Summit that will take place this Saturday, June 4th at 11 a.m. It's open to all of our warrior scholars. Many of you listening to this broadcast are. And by the way, those of you who are not warrior scholars, please go to vashiva.com/join and sign up to be one. But at our discussions, we go very deep into taking a systems approach beyond left and right. So at the event that we're planning on Saturday, I want to share with all of you what we're going to be discussing. First of all, we're going to discuss what is the root cause of gun violence. What's the root cause? What does that mean? In system science, when you look at a very complex system, you don't just go to the surface level. And what I mean by that is if you think about an elephant, and I've shared this analogy before, the elephant considered a complex system. If you want to fool people, imagine putting blindfolds, this is a very famous story on various people, and telling them to go touch that elephant. And this is a story of a king who brought in 6 blind men and had them touch parts of the elephant. Well, the person who touched the tusk, as I've shared before, thought it was a spear. The guy who touched the ears thought it was, a fan, and so on. The guy who touched the legs thought it was a tree. The guy who touched the body thought it was a wall. Well, none of them had a real view of it. It's a wonderful way of people arguing with each other because all these blind men argue with each other. These are very complex systems. So when you think about gun violence, at every incidence of gun violence that the media wants to amplify, immediately after that, you have the standard left-wing and right-wing view, pro-gun, anti-gun view, okay? But we never really get to the root cause. And the recurrent process again occurs over and over again. So when in our summit, our Truth, Freedom, and Health Warriors, we're going to be sharing what is the root cause. And when you take a systems approach, you actually find out what that root cause is. So that's the first thing. So if you want to understand what is the root cause of gun violence, please make sure to attend the summit. The second thing is why the establishment needs gun violence. So if you think about this, if you have a serious problem in your household or your family, and you're serious about it, you go solve it. Well, it seems like this problem never really gets solved, right? Or the problem isn't even defined properly. So the second thing we're going to talk about is why the establishment needs gun violence, like why they need this to be a recurrent problem, all right? And you're going to understand the dynamics of that from a system standpoint. The next thing we will also be discussing at the summit is the question of why the establishment will never solve gun violence, why they have no intention to solve gun violence, why it'll always be a story the way it's going, and the left and the right will continue to have a discourse on it, which leads nowhere except to have a discourse on it. And you'll have one wing of the establishment just rattle off all the reasons that we need guns, and the other wing of the establishment rattle off why we should eliminate guns, right? And that's a kind of surface level discussion that'll take place, and everyone thinks they're standing up for their positions, okay? But we're going to get into discussing at the summit why the establishment will never solve gun violence. But you need to understand why. The other point that we're going to talk about is how the establishment divides working people so gun violence is never solved. You have to understand that every time these incidents occur, whether it's this issue or another issue, the establishment is very clever into interestingly dividing people into these two halves, pro, anti, and obviously you have another set of people, which we'll discuss at the summit, who are just hopelessly done. They don't even want to discuss anything. They just want to sort of hide. And then there's also a fourth group who actually becomes domestic terrorists, and we'll talk about that, okay? But it's important to understand how the establishment actually divides working people, and we'll be discussing that at the summit. Next thing is, why does gun violence always become about pro and anti-gun? If you notice, go look at every time there's any one of these incidents, you have people parroting the pro-gun narrative and the anti-gun narrative. And it just goes back and forth. You have both wings profit from it. A bunch of nonprofits profit from one wing, and a bunch of other people profit from the other wing. Nothing ever really gets solved, all right? But you need to understand why. Why does this always become this issue about pro and anti-gun? Why we don't go deeper into the systems level issues, and what are those issues? The next thing is we also need to understand how both wings of the establishment actually profit from gun violence. Both wings, not just, the left may say, oh, the right, gun suppliers are profiting. But the reality is that the left also profits from this. Both left and right profit from perpetuating this issue when there is actually a real solution, but they never really want to address it. The next thing is we also need to understand who has been the biggest perpetrators of gun violence, but more importantly, violence. This is really important to understand. Who has actually, when you step back and you look at the long arc of human history, who has actually been the biggest perpetrators of gun violence? So we need to step back, remove our blinders, and see, as I mentioned, the elephant, see the whole system. And what comes out of that systems analysis is you're going to actually understand who's been the biggest perpetrators of gun violence. And for that matter, violence, when you look at the arc of human history. And that's really important to understand because the media, those in power, they don't want us to ever look at the whole issue. They want us to get caught up in this issue, get devastated by the issue, but never see the whole issue. So this is a very important element we're going to cover at the summit. Who has been the biggest perpetrators of gun violence and violence? And again, we're going to look at this not from a left-wing standpoint, not from a right-wing standpoint, but from a scientific systems analysis. We have to look at the facts, not what we want the world to be, but what it actually is. So we'll be covering that. It's going to be a very, very big summit, okay? Because we're going to go very deep. It's not something we can do in half an hour. It's not something that can be done in sound bites. The next thing we're going to look at is what factor from all the recent research. We've done a thorough review of all the scientific literature to date. And the question that comes up with what is a factor based on all the research that highly correlates with gun violence? Is it access to guns? Is it poverty? Is it race? Is it mental illness? Is it bullying? Or is it something else? And the good news is that some of the latest research shows that there is a factor that links all of these things, but is really what you call the irreducible factor, okay? That's sort of the connective tissue. And the good news is we know what that is. You won't hear any of this on Tucker Carlson. You won't hear it on CNN. You won't get it on people on social media just taking one side or the other side, because it's not something that you can unpack with a soundbite. That's why we're holding a summit this Saturday. But this is what our warriors will be exposed to, our warrior scholars, okay? What factor highly correlates with gun violence? And that's going to arm you with really good data. The next thing is the big picture. We want to look at the history of violence and its key drivers. What are the historical factors, when you look at the arc again of history, that has been really the big driver of all violence? It just so happens that at one point in history, maybe people used knives, and maybe people used sickles, maybe people used hammers, maybe people used poison gas, maybe people used guns, okay? But what's been the driver of all of this? And that's really important to understand. So we put things in context. The next thing is, and this is probably the most important thing, because, if you take a systems approach to a problem, not only are you able to find what the real problem is, but you're actually able to find the real solution. And that's what the world needs. We don't need people taking a left-wing, right-wing side. We don't need people sort of getting desperate and hopeless. And we don't need people taking terrorist actions. But those in power, as you will see in the summit, want people being in the left or the right, or getting hopeless, or actually being taking ridiculous terrorist desperate actions. But there is another way, which is the real solution to this. And we're going to, again, unpack this and discuss what the real solution is. And there is a real solution that we can end gun violence for good. Okay? And finally, what we want to talk about is who has the most to win and the most to lose by ending gun violence? Who wins if gun violence ends, and who loses if gun violence ends? And you have to look at those. So when you look at these points, this is what we're going to be discussing. Again, to those of you who are just joining, we're going to be holding a summit for all of our Truth, Freedom, and Health warriors, Saturday, June 4th, this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. If you want to be a Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior, and you're not one, most of you are, I'm assuming, go to vashiva.com/join and sign up. But our movement is really a movement. It's an educational movement. It's a bottoms-up movement to educate people, to provide people a completely different way of looking at the world in a truthful way, in an honest way, in a scientific way, not in some robotic left-wing way or robotic right-wing way. And that's what you see right after the unfortunate set of events that took place in Uvalde. You had one set of people, da-da-da-da-da, and another set of people going da-da-da-da-da, and both people are at each other's throats. And most of those people are working people who have nothing to gain from actually being at each other's throats, but there are other people who have a lot to gain. So that's what we're going to be discussing. I'm going to be coming and summarizing stuff. But by the way, those of you who are not a Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior, but want to learn more, I encourage you to also, if you want to learn more about the movement, please come to an orientation. It's open to anyone. Go to vashiva.com/orientation, sign up. And we're holding an open house orientation this Thursday. We have, if you sign up, you'll get an invitation to come. When is it, Ken? At 11 a.m. on Thursday?
Saturday.
No, Thursday at 11 a.m. is the orientation. And we have an orientation at 8 p.m. this Thursday, coming Thursday. You can just come if you want to learn more about the Truth, Freedom, and Health movement. So please come, and I'll share more there. We're going to be discussing Saturday. All of you who are Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior scholars, please note that it's this Saturday at 11 a.m. It's going to be about a 3 to 4 hour summit. We're going to go deep into all the details that I just discussed in the agenda. This is what we're going to be covering in the agenda. So those of you who really want to understand the root cause, how we end gun violence for good, please join us. But recognize it's only going to come from a bottoms-up movement. It's not going to come from politicians. It's not going to come from talking heads. It's going to come from everyday working people. I'll be right back. And a number of you want to know what is our Truth, Freedom, and Health movement. I'll just play you a features video, and I'll be right back. Hello, this is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. Welcome to VA Shiva, the platform of education, technology, and activism, so you may raise your consciousness to win the truth, freedom, and health you need to create the future you deserve. The VA Shiva platform provides its Truth, Freedom, Health warrior scholars the following 3 capabilities. Number 1, an ultimate education that is based on the science of systems. Number 2, technologies to empower you to take charge of your health, as well as social media tools, independent of big tech, so you can connect with other incredible Truth, Freedom, Health warrior scholars equally dedicated like you to winning truth, freedom, and health. 3, instruments for activism, so you become a beacon of light in your online and offline community to educate others, growth, and advancement. VA Shiva provides you the foundations of the science of systems, the ultimate education. The science of systems provides you the missing fundamental scientific knowledge to understand every system in and around you. The science of systems will enable you to uncover the real problem and real solution in any situation and on any issue. Concerning the educational component, first you will receive direct access to me to learn the science of systems in my 3-hour live private online group class that I run every week. Second, you will have access to archived lectures so you can continue your education independent of me. Third, you can test your proficiency in learning the fundamental principles and get a formal certification for the foundations of systems. Independent of this classroom education, you will receive also 4 important books. The first book is the best-selling classic Systems and Revolution, from which you can learn all of these concepts and more. The second book is The Science of Everything, that will educate you on how the science of systems systems is the foundational knowledge of every system in the universe. The third book, Your Body, Your System, focuses on how to understand the interplay of these systems within your own body. And then the fourth book, Your System, Your Life, will help you apply these principles to other aspects of your life, such as running a business, understanding relationships, and more. Beyond the curriculum and books, the second capability is the technologies that you will be afforded. One of them is a powerful Your Body, Your System software, which is an online laboratory where you can use your body as a system to further deepen your understanding of the science of systems. The tool allows you to understand what kind of system you are. Is your system on course or is it off course? And how the inputs of food, supplements, herbs, activities such as sleep, yoga, meditation, exercise can affect your body to bring it back on course. Finally, to support your education, I've also included a seminal scientific paper that I wrote, which will help you understand that the knowledge of systems, it does not only originate in the modern world starting in the 1920s and 30s, but it actually dates back 10 to 20,000 years and intersects directly with the foundations of Eastern systems of medicine. In addition to this, you will also get 2 scientific papers sharing how the science of systems can also be used to apply to understanding how food is medicine. One paper exposes turmeric from the molecular systems level and how it affects your body. The other paper explores ginger and how that affects your body. That's just the educational piece. As you raise your consciousness through this education, you will likely want to connect with other truth, freedom, health warrior scholars in an environment where you can connect and build community. To support that, I've also created 2 powerful social media tools. One of them is a VA/Shiva forum. Here you can start discussions, you can pose questions and meet others and have healthy debates. The other is VA/Shiva Social, where you can create your own profile, your own presence, like other major social media tools. However, it is independent of big tech. You can use VA/Shiva Social to interconnect with your fellow truth, freedom, health warrior scholars and build community. Beyond the education capability and the social media capability, the platform also enables you to take action by disseminating your knowledge on the ground and into your local online and offline communities. Powerful educational cards and research are included so you can pass these cards to your friends and neighbors that provide them summarized content which further directs them to online research and education. In addition to this, the activism component also provides you many short 1-minute educational video content, memes, and text, allowing you to quickly craft messages for your Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and other pages so you can deliver content to educate others and drive them to longer educational posts on VA/Shiva. VA/Shiva is fundamentally an enabling platform for you to get the truth, freedom, and health you deserve through education, technology, and activism. I hope you become a truth, freedom, and health warrior scholar today. Thank you. Many of you know we discuss a lot of sensitive topics here. The research work we've done on this is going to be very valuable, but most of social media, when I shared some of the stuff back in 2020 on the vaccines, I think some of our videos got like 30, 40, 50 million views and they were taken down. Same you can see on the issues with the free speech issue. This is probably such a highly sensitive issue that we wanted to make sure we did it in an environment, and because of the sensitivity of it, that we did an environment that was closed and accessible to people who are part of the movement, because the goal is to actually change this. It isn't just to have some type of intellectual discourse. So those of you who are warriors, please join us this Saturday. Let me just put up the thing again. And those of you who are not, you're welcome to come to the orientation Thursday at 11 or Thursday at 8 p.m. I'll be at those orientations, and you're welcome to, and if you want to go to the orientation, you just go to vashiva.com/orientation and you'll get an invite. We typically have a particular link we send, so you can be part of that. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you all this Saturday at 11 a.m., the Truth, Freedom, Health Warrior Scholars. And those of you who are not part of that program, please come to the orientation at vashiva.com. We put it up again, /orientation, and then you'll get an invite to come to the orientation. So I hope this was valuable, but I look forward to seeing you guys there. But we need to get to the heart of the root cause of gun violence and what the real solution is. And we need to have a discussion about it if we're serious. Otherwise, we can be in these left-right camps. I don't believe most of our people who are into the systems approach want to do that. They actually want to address this head on and provide solutions. So anyway, I look forward to seeing you all there. Be well, be the light. Thank you.